Hello and welcome everybody to this webinar. Today is Thinking with Thought Coach Johnnie Calloway. And Johnnie Calloway is an awesome human being. If you have never heard of him, I highly recommend you start with reading this book. It does not just have an amazing cover image, but the content also shows Johnny's story and how he went from at the bottom of the world to very close to the top. So I welcome Johnnie Calloway. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that I got to do the podcast with you, and I'm so grateful you invited me to do this webinar. This is my life. So I want to say welcome, everyone, to Think, the name of the webinar. And do you ever think about your thoughts? Think about that. Do you ever think about what you're thinking? I want to give you a little history on myself and my team. We call it Team Morph, and we consider ourselves to be thought managers, because that's what we do. We help people manage their thoughts and get through whatever darkness they're in to the other side. We actually like to think of ourselves as being the flashlight that someone that can hold in the darkness to find their way through. So our tagline is, if you want to change your life, you have to change your mind about your life. So, about me. Everything I do is based on my personal experience of healing and recovering from addictions, mental health issues, and mental health diagnoses, and what I've done to get through the darkness of all of those. And what are those things that I've had to deal with? It's a pretty hefty list. I've lived through child abuse. I've survived addictions. I live with severe PTSD, bipolar disorder, at least 4 suicide attempts, and I've been hospitalized for mental health issues, and I've been homeless. And yet here I am today, sitting in front of you, talking about my path to get through that. And the result of all of that is I have now devoted myself to helping others get through that darkness, because it can be a very lonely, incredibly frightening place to try to get through by yourself without somebody giving you some guidance. What are we going to do here today? Hopefully, I'm going to help you get curious about the power of the way you think and what those thoughts can do in your life. And hopefully, we'll be able to guide you into paying attention to what you think and how what you think affects your life. That is the objectives for today. Now, most of what I do is rooted in A Course in Miracles. Okay, so what is A Course in Miracles? It's a spiritual philosophy. It's a blend of Eastern and Western philosophy that brings it home. But I have to say this. You do not need to believe in A Course in Miracles to be able to utilize thought management in your life and change your life. You don't have to get curious about A Course in Miracles. That's just the path that I've taken, but there are many paths that lead to the same place. Buddha taught it. It's even in the Bible. James Allen wrote a book called, in 1912, called As a Man Thinketh, which actually comes from the Bible in Proverbs, chapter 23, verse 7. It says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. He wrote an entire book about the fact of that. So, and Eckhart Tolle teaches it. Wayne Dyer taught it. I think I said his name right. Deepak Chopra. They all teach about the power of thought. But I really want to, with my work and with Team Morph, I want to emphasize that, because I think we hear that and we think that's really cool, but then we don't really implement it into our daily living. So I really like to think of it as, take A Course in Miracles out of it. Life is a course in mind training. Because if we don't train our minds to where we become the manager of it, instead of it being the manager of us, it can take us down some very dark places. So today we're going to cover, the untrained mind, how to train our mind, and how changing a thought can change a life. And first, we're going to talk about the untrained mind. In the Course in Miracles, it says, you are much too tolerant of mind wandering and are passively condoning our mind's miscreation. From A Course in Miracles. If we are not guarding our thoughts and we're just letting our thoughts run amok, because thought is so powerful, we're creating things in our life thinking it really doesn't matter because it's just a thought. There is no such thing as an idle thought. All thinking produces form on some level. The energy that we have about the thought creates something in our life. So we must pay attention to that. The untrained mind is unguarded, it's unwatched, it's unruled, and it creates a very chaotic, drama-based life most of the time. In James Allen's book, As a Man Thinketh, he talks about how we tend to believe that our circumstances, which is our life, is created by our attitudes and our emotions. Nothing could be farther from the truth. The truth is our attitudes and our emotions create the circumstances. So if we want to change the circumstances, we need to change the way we think, because the way we think creates our attitude and our emotions. I hope that's making sense to you guys. It makes so much sense to me. It may not be a good determinant. An untrained mind produces an inconsistent belief system. Think about that. If you've got conflicting beliefs in your life, and your belief system, believe it or not, drives your decision-making process. So if our belief system is not consistent with itself, and we're coming from two different belief systems trying to make a decision, it makes it much more difficult to make a grounded decision. Again, I hope that's making sense to you, because it's almost the way I think in pictures a lot. And the picture I get with that, it's like I'm trying to have a grounded life, but I'm standing on an inner tube lifting weights, and the inner tube's in the water. So it's really difficult to be grounded while floating. So the untrained mind, that's what it does. It creates the drama, the chaos, and the lack of confidence in our decision-making ability. If the dots do not connect, our belief in our life is, at the very least, it's unstable. So with thought management, we can stabilize ourselves and our decision-making in the process of moving forward. So some of you may be saying, my thoughts are consistent. I do live a pretty stable life. Well, I want to not challenge that, but I want to challenge that. I mean, no matter how successful we are with what we're trying to do in our lives, is there room for growth? Is there room to move forward? So I'm going to beg of you to be open to the possibility that with training and learning how to manage our thoughts better, maybe our lives could become even more stable and more grounded. No matter how well we think we're doing, there's always room for growth. And if we can be open to that and learn how to better manage the thoughts that run through our mind, I think we can all do better. And I think that's why we're all here today, is to get to the next place we want to go. Okay, so now we'll go over training our mind a little bit and how we do that. Again, from A Course in Miracles, you are free to believe what you choose, and what you do attests to what you believe. And again, please Just because I'm coming from A Course in Miracles with my way of what brought this all home for me, it does not need to mean that you need to become a Course in Miracles student. It's been very helpful to me, but you can have your own path. It is not necessary, because that's a very big book and it's very difficult read. And just let me point out the high points for it so you can use it in your life. So how do we, our behavior, what we do is based on how we believe. So if we want to change our behavior, we got to change how we believe. And if we're going to change how we believe, we got to change how we think. So how do we do that? It's really simple. It's not necessarily easy, but we must become the observers of our mind. If we watch what's running through our mind and we look for how it's affecting our lives, then we can make a choice. When you get up in the morning and you decide your goal for the day, whether you go through that process or not, whether you believe that or not, when we arise, we make a goal for what that day is and what we want that day to be. Well, by observing our minds, we can, I like to use the plant philosophy because of a quote I got from a friend. If we're watching, we can look for the thoughts that support our goal for the day, and we can look for the weeds that destroy our goal for the day. So we get to pick and choose how we want to think so we can support what it is we want to achieve. Now, we must have that process, and the more focus we put on that process, the more we're going to attain the goal of that process. And it is very, very helpful if our goal for the day is based on how can my day be of service to others? How can what I'm trying to achieve today not only serve me, but serve everyone? That is incredibly helpful. Now, you may not be one of those like myself or like Christine or like Maggie that, and I'm going to say Marla and Phyllis and Sherry, that you may not be one of those that is like dedicating your life to the service of others. You don't have to be. You don't have to write a book. You don't have to do a webinar. You don't have to do any of that. Maybe it could be as simple as like, how can I help the elderly today by opening the door for them? How can I help them by being willing to back up and let them go in front of me at the register? How can I help anybody by doing that? It doesn't have to be these big things. You know, there's a part of our mind that tells us, so we're going to serve others, we got to serve everyone, and we got to do all this stuff. And no, you don't. Just give somebody a hand. Maybe just give somebody a smile. A lot of people go through the day, they never smile, and they're never smiled at. So smile at someone. It's a service. It puts a lightness in their heart. And they get to realize that everybody's not out to get them. So in this process of learning how to manage our thoughts, it is incredibly beneficial, helpful, and makes it more fun if we've got someone that we can trust, someone that shares this path with us, working with us as we go forward. Having that support creates connection and unity and lets me know I'm not alone. And whenever we feel like we're not alone in what we're doing, it gives us more willingness and more desire to keep moving forward. And I'm going to talk about my friend here that you can see, Maggie, throughout this whole process of me building Team Morph and me writing these books. There has been so many times when, if Maggie hadn't been in the background saying, you can do this, I may have quit. I'm pretty sure I would have. I would tell Maggie I was thinking about quitting, and she would, in her own way, in different verbiage, say, not yet. And having that support and that belief from somebody else is paramount. I can't say enough about how helpful it is in this process to have that. And besides that, of our own devices, I think it was Einstein that said, you can't heal an insane mind with an insane mind. So if I'm trying to do this on my own devices, I may change my behavior and everything on the outside may look fine, but on the inside, where it really happens, where change really needs to occur, if I just change the behavior and I don't change the thought that drives the behavior, I'm going to end up guiding myself down another dead end path. It may look different on the outside, but what's going on inside is the same disbelief in who I am. So it's not really a good idea to do this by ourselves. I will say this, though, it's better if I do it by myself than it is if I don't do it at all. So just do it. And I need to say this about the whole morph into a new you thought management process. Okay. It sounds really simple. To change a thought changes a life. I mean, okay, so I'm just going to change the way I think. It's not that easy. Simple does not equate to easy. This is not a one and done process. It's not drive-through recovery. It's meant to become a lifestyle. And because the deal is, we have surrounded ourselves with lies about ourselves, lies about our friends, lies about life itself, lies about the world and what it's for. We have hidden the light of spirit behind all those lies. So you can't just say, okay, I want to be a rock star and I just need to change my thought about whether that could be or not, because there are so many lies covering up the idea that you can be a rock star. So it takes digging, it takes work. So even though I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, miracles can give a false impression. I've known so many people that go to A Course in Miracles classes trying to avoid doing the work. The work, it's work to find the truth of who we are. And the truth of who we are is we're love. That's what we are. And this work will guide us to that. But so many people come to A Course in Miracles thinking they can escape doing that work because it's just going to be a miracle and all of a sudden I'm just going to be healed. Got to do the work. Okay, so changing a thought changes a life. Really? So at Team Morph, our thought managers, we have a process that we go through, an equation we call it. And it's a pretty simple equation, not necessarily easy. Again, every feeling we have begins with a thought. We think we see something outside. We see a car accident. We see a sick person. We see a homeless person on the side of the road. We think seeing that produces sadness. It doesn't. The event does not produce the feeling. The way we think about the event produces the feeling. Because how many times have you been in a car with someone, a close friend, and you both see the same thing and you both have a different report of what you saw and a different experience of it? Why is that? Because you both thought about it differently. So if I see a homeless person on the side of the street and I start feeling sad about what they're going through, what their life has taken them to, I need to change the way I think about that. And that can be a number of things. A number of things. Like for me, in all honesty, and this may sound somewhat cold, but that may be, and I believe it is, exactly what they want. we tend to think that because we live in a house, because we pay bills, because we have a car, that that's the way it should be for everybody. Maybe they don't want the responsibility that comes with all that, and it's easier for them to live in a tent or under a bridge than it is to have to deal with all that. I just need to be open to that thought. You don't have to embrace that thought right now, but just be open. There's another way of thinking about it that won't make you feel like blowing your own brains out every time you see somebody standing on the side of the street. Any feeling I have, as I said in the beginning, I have battled with depression. I have been homeless. I live with bipolar disorder and PTSD. I have not had an episode with any of those things for 12 years, at least 12 years. Why is that? Because I think about them differently. When I start having a thought of sadness, I investigate the thought. I embrace the feeling. And I'm like, okay, is what I'm thinking and feeling right now even real? Because when that part of my mind that takes me to those places starts digging in, if I don't check it out and change the way I'm thinking about it, before I know it, I'm in that pit of hell trying to find whatever way I can to get out. And it can produce alcoholism, drug addiction. I believe it produces bipolar disorder and all of it. So I can think my way through it. I know people say you can't do that, but if I manage my thoughts as they come up, I can keep myself from going down in that hole. And that is incredible to me. And I know it works because I do it every day. I sometimes at night when I'm going to trying to go to bed and go to sleep, my mind will say, okay, now it's time to kick in. And I'll start thinking about what I didn't do today, what I need to do tomorrow. And I have to say, okay, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. You're tired. You're ready to go to sleep. You can't fix this now. Because I can't at that time. And then I can relax and go to sleep. But if I'm trying to fix the world as I'm trying to go to sleep, those two don't go well together. So all of our feelings are born with a thought. Okay, so how does a feeling create a belief? Without learning to manage our thoughts, we tend to believe that our feelings are facts. And we begin to try to navigate the feeling with our, okay, this one can be a little tough. The belief comes from the feeling because we're trying to manage it based on what we've been told. And sometimes what we were told does not work. And it creates a world of supposed to. When we lose a loved one, we have been told you lost someone, now you are supposed to grieve. Who said? If I'm thinking of my belief system says I'm supposed to grieve. Oh, and by the way, with grieving, we're not only told we're supposed to grieve, we're given a particular path of feelings that we're supposed to experience to get through it. That we're supposed to. What if we changed that? What if I said, okay, I didn't really lose anybody. I don't have their physicality around me anymore, but they're still with me. And I know for myself that by changing that thought process, in the last 3.5 years, I've lost 2 sisters. And you may think I'm a little crazy here, but I've spent more time with them since they passed than I spent with them while they were here. Because several times while I'm driving down the road and I see something that one or the other of them or both of them would have enjoyed seeing, I'll say out loud in my car by myself, gee, sis, look at that. They never rode in my car with me. Well, I can't say never, but while they were still here and they were in Kentucky and I was here, I didn't do that with them. Sometimes when I'm sitting on my couch watching TV, if I'm flicking through the channels and I come across an old Western, All of a sudden, my dad's sitting at the end of the couch and we're watching a Western together. Their spirit and their energy can be with me forever. And we can do that just by changing the way we believe and the way we think about that. And if we remove ourselves from the world of what I'm supposed to be feeling and allow myself to feel just what I'm feeling, instead of letting somebody else tell me this is what you're supposed to feel right now. I don't let people do that with me too much. And there's a whole other thing that I could talk about that it would, some people say that what I do is denial, that I'm denying the facts. I say I don't care if it's denial. I don't care if you call it denial. If it makes me feel better to think a particular way, I'm going to think it. And if it denies what you call the facts, so be it. But I feel better. And I get to make that up however I want to. I am the master of my mind, not something outside of me. So our beliefs drive our decision-making process, and without management of that thought process, it can take us into the world it's supposed to. And a lot of times those supposed to's aren't even things we believe in. And then our beliefs produce our behavior, because when you believe and you're creating your life based on your beliefs, your decision about that belief, about that supposed to world, produces the way we act, our attitudes, our whole, the whole thing. And so by removing that whole supposed to part of it from the equation and just being where I'm at and allowing myself to think about where I'm at differently than I've thought about it before, it really produces change in my life. Isn't that the goal? Now, I'm not saying that you can't change your behavior without changing your thinking. I'm not saying that, because you can. I've seen people do it. I've done it. But if I change the behavior, our behavior is how we judge ourselves, is how we judge others, and it's how others judge us. So I can change my behavior, and my friend calls it, if I change the behavior without changing the thought, it's like putting lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. So if I change the behavior without changing the thought, I can't change what's in my heart. And what's in my heart is what really matters. So if I change the way I think about it, I'm changing my heart, which changes the driving force of my life. And when I change my life, that's our goal. And so it is so important to realize the power of thought. That's our whole purpose at Team More. And that's the whole reason we do everything we do. Now, I know that in our world, most people I've ever worked with, most people I've ever known trying to do any of this kind of work, and I think most people, let me just put it that way, we put forth a lot of energy trying to avoid our feelings. We don't want to feel that it hurts. We don't want to feel that da-da-da. And there's all kinds of stories that come with, I don't want to feel. It creates drug addiction and alcoholism. It creates, I think, bipolar, and it's a big part of the PTSD and the suicidal ideations. And it's a big part of all of it, just trying to avoid a feeling. I believe our feelings are our greatest teacher, because by inspecting and investigating my feelings, it drives me to seeing what I'm thinking. And where I'm thinking and what I'm thinking is the crux of the matter. So this is what I say about those of us that don't know how to identify a feeling because we're afraid of feeling it in the first place. I say, look at your behavior and walk through that equation backwards. Because if you discover the behavior, you can find the belief, the feeling, and the thought. And at the thought is where change happens, real change. And here is the equation put together, all of it. And, like I said, a feeling is inspired by a thought. A feeling produces a belief. A belief becomes our behavior, and our behavior is our life. So the summation of all of that, change a thought, and you'll change the life. That is the miracle. That is the miracle. That is why we do what we do. And I cannot emphasize enough, yes, that is incredibly simple. And that darker part of our mind that wants to leave us trapped and imprisoned in a certain particular way of living, that part wants us to say that's too simple, that can't be real. If it's that simple, we'd all be doing it already. So we avoid it a lot of times because of its simplicity. It's simple, it's not easy. And remember, there's a world of difference in simple and easy. It takes work. You have to have courage to face your feelings. You have to have an open mind to being willing to change the way you see things. You have to have a willingness to be committed to something you're not sure is real. And you have to have an honesty about what it is you're thinking and feeling. And that courage is a vital part of that, of being willing to look and to embrace and to feel your feelings. We can't do this work and avoid our feelings at the same time. We can change our feelings with this work, but we have to first see them. In my book, The Final Mile Home, there's a quote that I have in there. It's my quote. You must face the dragon to become the butterfly. There's a butterfly within each and every one of us. I don't care how dark their lives may seem, how our lives may seem, there's a butterfly in us that's hidden behind the dragon, our fears. So we can't go around the dragon, we can't go over the dragon, we can't go under the dragon. We have to go through the dragon by facing the fears that block the light of spirit. And in doing this work, you'll find your butterfly. And all those things of love that we dream about so much, all those ideas we have of peace, they come with that butterfly. And we get to soar and live our best life. So this thing is really cool. At the level of thought is where change happens. In my mind, and with what we're doing here at Team Morph, the level of thought is the only place that change happens. We go through the motions of making changes when we change our behavior without changing our thinking. But the self-destructive, self-sabotaging, harmful, self-harmful things that we do, they're just going to show up in a different form. You know, in the 12-step community, we talk about selfishness and self-centeredness. And when I first quit drinking and I was going to the 12-step meetings, I latched onto that thing about the selfishness and self-centeredness. And I'm like, okay, I'll just stop. So I did that for like 3 years before I realized one day, you know what? I'm still selfish and self-centered. I've just created more clever ways of expressing it. But still behind it all, there's me looking out for me. When we start to look out for others as well, it's an amazing process. And again, it doesn't have to be some big thing. You don't have to write a book, do a webinar, do podcasts. You don't have to do any of that. Just help the person right in front of you. Somebody falls down, help them get up. So at the level of thought is where we make the real changes in our life. Okay, So I think I've kind of run through it, so I hope I've given you something you can take away from here and use today. So now I'm going to ask, are there any questions? And if I can't answer them, I'll send you over to Maggie.
So Johnny, and I want to make sure that everybody has your contact information if they want to get to know you. And we are opening it to the whole audience now. If you have any questions, let us know. I have a few questions I want to ask you. But if it's okay, we'll go back to the shared screen so we can see you the best, because all this is awesome. And I can only recommend, if you have never read any of Johnny's books, go ahead and start with, which one do you recommend, Johnny, to start with?
I would say Dragons to Butterflies,
Yeah.
But I really, sometimes it depends on what you're looking for, because the final Dragons to Butterflies is my story. It's my path. There's not a lot of how I made changes in Dragons to Butterflies, just general little nudges as to what I have done. And the final mile home is my heart. It was actually more difficult for me to present the final mile home to the world than it was Dragons to Butterflies, because, my story is my story. You can't really argue with that. It's my story. But the final mile home is about spiritual principles that we must go through to remember who we are. So it's a coin toss as to which one I would say is first. Depends on what you're really looking for. So
that's a good answer. And I'm sharing your website again. So anybody that is interested in learning more, and I know one of the ladies said she's interested in free stuff right now, and to learning free stuff, and as well as my website as on Johnny's, I know there's a lot of free stuff that we are providing for people just to help them out. And the best way, I really recommend, read that book. If you're in a dark spot, start with Dragons to Butterflies. I read it and it crippled me. It grabbed my heart. The story is unreal. The book is not very expensive. If you can afford a meal, you can afford that book. It's well worth buying. And I just want to say thank you for meeting me and being with me, Johnny, because you are truly an inspiration. Not very men in this world dare to show their vulnerability. This is rare and shows, in my mind, great courage. You reached a level of evolution in our life that many can only aspire to follow, but everybody can reach. Sometimes we need help. And I know, Johnny, from knowing a little bit about your story, you went through so much. Now, any questions besides the ones I have?
Yes, I have a question. Johnny, you were mentioning if the person that goes to, I have not been going or never have gone through Coursing Miracles, but you're saying that if the person wants to go and they are willing to do the work, what do you mean by doing the work? And then also another one that I have is about the feelings. Okay, one part is that I grew up with the belief that I had to be beaten in order to be corrected. So I have a lot of scars in my body because parents are the authority. So then when I came here to United States, so when people tell me that police is the authority, so then I got beaten by police too. So I knew, or someone told me that was a belief that I learned, wrong belief. So, okay, so I worked with that one, and like I had to pay for the wrong of others, right? That's what is something that I've been helping because they stole my money. So then, in this moment, I know I am working with myself, and writing in gratitude that yes, I know I am already receiving my money. I know that I am not the child that I used to go think, blah, blah. But what do you mean they change in the two questions that I ask you, please?
So I think the one question that I heard first is, what is the work? Is that correct? So the work is doing the internal investigation of what thoughts are running my life. Which fear am I coming from a place of love? Am I coming from a place of fear? And then going into further investigation as to why I believe in those fears, and are those fears real? And it is work, because as I said, we bury the truth under so many lies that we have to peel away layer after layer sometimes to get to the truth of what thoughts are running our lives. And yeah, that's work. It's real internal work. One of my next books is going to be Within the Chrysalis. It's an inside job. So this work is, even though it's on the inside, it shows up externally in our lives if we do the work. And so many of us, because we're afraid of facing our feelings, as Christine said, as a man, me expressing the things that I expressed in Dragons to Butterflies, men frown on that. Even male friends of mine that have read Dragons to Butterflies have been like, how could you say that? And my response is typically, how could I not say that? Because I know there's so many people that need to know that it's okay to say that. So as far as doing the work, that's the work. And it usually takes a guide to help us, because caught up in all that stuff, all those layers of lies, that's basically insanity. And we cannot heal an insane mind with an insane mind. So we need to have somebody else that's got a little firmer footing in their life that can guide us and lead us through that darkness to help us find that truth. Because we are so afraid of going there, we will find so many reasons to avoid it. I hope that makes sense. And who asked that question? I didn't see.
Melanie.
Melanie.
The cat.
Okay.
The sweet
cat.
cat.
I know that one part I've been taking classes because, I don't have the money to pay anyone, period. But I do know that I've been listening others, and I've been writing, I've been going through inner healing, churches that they provide inner healing, that they tell me, about God. They talk to me, they say, okay, well, God, so I believe is that what you were saying, like, is this true? And then they tell me, please reject it immediately. No, that's a lie. So that's what they are helping me. But
Okay,
it's a lot of work.
So I never want anybody to not be able to experience their growth because they quote unquote can't afford it. So if you go to my website, you will find, I don't know, I think it's at least 100 podcasts where we talk about these things. You will find blogs that I've written. You'll find interviews I've been on. You'll find all kinds of help there. And what I'm offering to those that are here today, if you go to the website and you join the email list, I will send you a signed copy of Dragons to Butterflies.
Wow. Johnny, that is wonderful. And if you can just say something about Melanie, Melanie, for one, I commend you for trying, because that is the first step. You have to recognize that you're stuck in a rut, you're unhappy, and you want to have it better, and you want to make your life better. In the end, the only one that can change your life is yourself.
Yes.
And you know that, and many people don't. So good for you. I really commend that. And the more you listen to people like Johnnie Calloway that has been homeless in the streets and literally worked his way out, the more you will realize you can do it too. It takes time, it takes a ton of work, and there will be people that tell you you're wrong and how you have to think, which I disagree fully. And I think, Johnny, you will too. Nobody can tell you how you have to think. You know how you need to think and feel to feel better. And a thought coach, and any coach that is worth its time, let's put it that way, will never tell you how to think, but will help you to explore your thoughts and give you maybe a tip or here how you can work on yourself to improve. Is that right, Ronnie, or did I get it wrong?
Was that for me or for Ellen?
That is for you.
Okay, so no, you're exactly right. And what I want to say to Melanie is, Melanie, you can contact me via email.
Please do.
With whatever questions you got, or you on my website, there's a tab in the bottom right-hand corner for talk. You can post a question on the website, and I'll do whatever I can to answer the question and get you to the next question. Because the secret, to me, the secret to finding peace of mind in this life is asking questions. So questions are vital for anybody. I don't care how far evolved someone might seem to think they are. I still have to be willing to ask questions. If I ever reach a place where I think I know it all, I need to step back. Because if I knew it all, I wouldn't be here. I would be done with this experience and I would poof and go on. So I'm not ready to poof yet.
I love that, Johnny. There's a few very nice quotes in your webinar, and I heard many good things. And I just want to mention what my dear mother always told me: to realize how little you know, you have to be pretty smart. So people that think they know it all, in her opinion at least, are pretty stupid. So don't feel bad if you don't know it all. I know a lot, but I'm far from knowing it all.
Christine, can I just interject there? It
Absolutely.
reminds me of the thing my husband always says about his business and his team. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
I like that. You know,
Yeah,
Marshall Goldsmith in his book, Take It to the Next Level, which I adore, wrote about a talk he held to medical student. And he said, who thinks that they are in the top 50% of their class? And 90% raised their hands. Now, that statistic applied. No, we know that at least 40% are wrong.
right.
That's thought, as you say, they need your services, Johnny. They truly need. Now, a question for you by me. What do you think about the connection between physical health and thoughts, brain, mind, and thoughts? Or is that a question of the chicken and egg?
No, it's not a question of the chicken and the egg, not in my world. I don't think it is possible for the body to get sick without the mind telling it to.
Okay.
And I don't care what the sickness is. We are not these bodies. These bodies do not do anything by happenstance. So the question for me when I have some type of illness is, why do I think this is going to serve me? How do I think this is going to serve me? Why have I created this in my life? And you really hit on one of the core things, one of the things that I try to avoid, because so many of us, everyone basically wants to believe that we are a victim to what our body does. And I don't think we are at all. That is my initial answer to that question.
Thank you, Johnny. And I know we could talk about hours just exploring that issue further, because there is an intricate interplay with all that many people are not aware, but I'm glad you are. And it is fascinating because it does not help if you feel unhappy and you think it's because you're fat. When you lose weight, and that's why 95% gain everything back, because they did not correct the thought behind it.
So, Maggie, if I may, can I share a little bit of your story? Okay. I don't think anything happens to us. I think everything happens for us.
Okay.
I think everything in life is a gift. So, sharing a little bit of Maggie's story. I guess it was a little over a year ago that Maggie was diagnosed with breast cancer. Went through all the stuff you go through with that, but Maggie refused to give in. So now then, Maggie has created this program for women dealing with breast cancer. And she has tapped into her passion and her purpose in life by doing that. Right, Maggie?
Yes.
Okay. So now Maggie's been working with me for a very long time, and she knows that I believe in nothing happens to us, everything happens for us. So she ended up being able to see her breast cancer as a gift that gave her the purpose or the reason to pursue her purpose. Right, Maggie?
Yes, and I will interject one thing that happened in between there, which was knowing that it happened for me in order to be a message for self-love and self-care. In that process of self-love and self-care helped me get to being fully on purpose. Like, it was totally a message in self-care for me. I know it. That's why it happened. And yes, it happened for me.
Back in 2008, I had a crash with my bipolar, my PTSD, and my suicidal ideations. I could not escape the thought of suicide. If I was awake, I wanted to die, period. And I really believe even when I was sleeping, I wanted to die, which I didn't get a lot of sleep. But one of the things, because I had been in the 12 steps and I had been in A Course in Miracles for so long, periodically this thought would kind of blow through my mind like a cool breeze that would say, Johnny, someday, some way, you're going to see the gift in this. Now, the result of all that is I found the help that I needed. I was guided to writing letters to me from the God of my understanding, which gave me an entirely different internal dialogue and taught me how to speak to myself with love, gentleness, and kindness, and taught me all of that. But the bottom line is that led me to writing these 3 books. So was it a gift? When I get an email from someone or a text message or a message on Messenger saying how much reading my books or listening to my podcasts or seeing this webinar has helped them, I can see the gift in what I went through. It was a nightmare. I ended up getting 7 electroconvulsive shock treatments because they didn't know what else to do with me. But all of that led me to here. I do not regret it. I do not want to do it again. But I do not regret it because it truly was a gift that drove me to my purpose.
Wow, that is a wonderful statement. Thank you so much for this gracious statement that basically all the hardship, and you went through a ton of hardship, more than most of us can imagine. And all the hardship you went for, you are grateful for because it led you to who you are now. And that reminds me of another person that is a great person. One of my early influences, Viktor E. Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. I'm sure you know him. It's an awesome book. I was fortunate I met him as a young medical student in Ulm when he was still alive. He survived concentration camp of Auschwitz and others and developed logotherapy, the meaning. And do you think that thought coaching discovers a person's meaning or purpose?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a line in Course in Miracles that I don't have totally memorized, so this is not going to be an exact quote. But it says, and it's speaking to everyone, not just to me. The book wasn't written just for me. But it says, you have a lofty purpose here. And not living it is what creates your pain. So by investigating our thoughts, it ultimately leads us to our purpose. And living a purpose-filled life is so much more invigorating than just living and collecting all the little things that we collect that we think are going to make us okay. Those things have never made anybody okay because there's never enough of them, no matter what they are. Not enough cars, not enough relationships, not enough rental property, not enough of any of it. But for personal fulfillment and living in your purpose gives you all of it.
And in the end, it costs nothing but an open mind and changing your thoughts, which actually is a high price to pay. Thank you so much, Johnny. It was awesome to hear you on your webinar and hear your thoughts from someone that has been through so much and went through it all. Thank you so much. And everybody that was here, I'm sure you got something away from it. Go on his website, check out his books. If you can, read The Dragons to Butterfly. It is well worth it. And if you like it, get the other ones too, because I think, Johnny, you're even getting better over time.
Thank you so much, Christine, and thanks for having me here. And I just want to put a quick thing in. Look into joining Team Morph and becoming a part of what we're trying to build here. We're in the process of filing for a nonprofit status and a 501c3, and we're trying to build a team to help us promote this work and get people real results from the work from trying to heal. I want to see people get real results that are long-lasting results, and that happens at the level of thought.
And I'm for sure to share all those links, and I encourage everybody to do that. Thank you so much, Johnny, for being who you are and doing what you do.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks for having us.